Hey, how are you doing? Let me get my microphone back up. I am doing really good and excited to talk to everybody about all the different things over the course of the season. We had quite a few sort of interesting encounters and events and things that Will prepared for us to show off different things that you can do in Dungeons and Dragons. And test, hello. Oh, you know what? I bet there was no Will. I'm talking. Okay, Will, talk for me again.
Smith, are we
There,
out there?
there's encounter roleplay.
There I
Do you want to
am.
do your? Go ahead and do
Yeah,
your
well, yeah,
intro
I was
again.
saying super interesting things for the past few minutes. Now you guys have totally missed out on it. So that's all there is. Now I was saying, welcome everyone. This is our Q&A session, and we're going to be not playing D&D today. If you're worried about spoilers, go back and watch last week's episode. We unexpectedly finaled last week, so we're doing our sort of breakdown and Q&A session today. Tool School, how are you?
I'm doing good because now I actually am broadcasting audio because I'm a pro streamer, man. Hashtag pro streamer. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was capturing the wrong input port. It was looking for a different set of headphones than the ones I was wearing, but we've got it now. Thanks for
Nailed it.
putting up with us once again, as I've screwed up the audio at the beginning of the session twice now. But no, I am Tosquall. I was playing Miguel throughout the year. Or throughout the season, and I'm excited to talk about some of the different things that happened not only last session but throughout the beginning of the season. We had a lot of interesting encounters, different things that Will set up for us, some great cinematic moments that he was able to share with us or let us role play through, including last week's finale. So yeah, let's talk some D&D, folks.
Let's do it. We also have Sid with us tonight. Sid, how you doing?
I am good. I think I've emotionally recovered from all the stuff that happened last week. I've I'm stronger than I ever have been now, and I'm just excited to kind of to dissect what has happened. And so I played Farron Hulling, who was the very first fighter I've ever played. She was an arcane archer, half sun elf, and oh, you know what? A funny thing that I wanted to bring up during this whole thing is that during the entire show, the overlay said that I was just an elf, and this whole time I've been a half elf, and I never got corrected.
Oh, oops. Here, let me correct that right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's all.
Awesome. We have Greg with us tonight. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing well, buddy. Doing well. Here to wrap up everything with some great characters during a great season with a great adventure, and let's get to it, man. Great chat. Best moderator in the biz. Let's do it.
Awesome. And we have Chelsea with us tonight. Chelsea, how you doing?
I am stoked to be here. Of course, to close out, it's always nice to have this wrap up, especially after a very emotional week. So I am Chelsea, or Little Red Dot. I played our lovable and somewhat naive Rufus. So yeah, it was actually probably one of my favorite endings to a story I've ever been a part of, because it came so unexpectedly. Like, you can prep yourself going into it a lot of times, and I was expecting that to be this week, and I couldn't prep myself for last week. Like, it was just true spontaneity, which in itself is a cool thing. So I'm excited to be back to chat about it and see how people felt about the season.
Yeah, awesome. And of course, I was your dungeon master this season,
I'm excited to
so
be back to chat about it,
yeah, that
see
was
how people
pretty
felt
awesome.
about
And yeah, we're going to
awesome.
talk about the season as a whole, and you guys are going to have a chance to
your
dungeon
dungeon
master
master
questions
well.
I'm
season.
excited
So
to be back to chat about it.
yeah,
See
that
how
will just
people
to
felt
those you guys in chat, if you have any questions about
we're
the
gonna
season,
talk about the season
and you guys are going to have a chance to
your dungeon
related
master
questions. Feel free to get those asking, and I will be tracking those. But let's start off with a conversation from you guys, the cast, our players. What were our thoughts, I guess, overall of the season? Because we got a lot done. We did a lot of traveling. We did a lot of exploration, a fair amount of combat this time around as well. So let's just go around. And what did you guys think? Or just whoever feels like talking. Feel free to talk for as long or as little as you feel like. It's nice.
I screwed up the audio again, but we're good. I didn't this time. I just double played you instead of just single played you. So we are on
Multiple.
top of it. We are on top
Twice
of
as
it.
loud.
Multiple, yes, the multiverse of wills was speaking.
Yes.
The season as a whole was the topic. Discuss.
Go. I think when you come into something that you're wanting to homebrew, and I work a lot in homebrew, probably more than I do in like pre-written campaigns, especially now. It's always interesting to see how a dungeon master or a storyteller will tie it into something that is already preset. Because it's really interesting. Like it's almost like you have to build off something, and you got to make it your own, but you also have to stay true to something else. So there's a really fine line that gets like walked, and I think you did a great job with this season and like leading us that way, making it feel like it was part of something larger.
Cool. Yeah, it was fun, like taking it from the Tomb of Annihilation that we did in the first season, and then taking it to largely Neverwinter, and then Environs as well. But yeah, I think definitely like homebrewing is where my heart is at. So I felt like the season was stronger from my standpoint than. I find like working from modules is more work and more difficult for me than just like making up my own stuff, because I feel like you kind of have to like do the material right, and then I'm always like, wait a minute, it had a DC for this down somewhere. Let me find this, and I'm gonna scroll from
search,
this. Whereas, right, otherwise I just make it up, so little stuff like that. Yeah. Anyone else? We can go around, I guess. We can go in reverse order now, so we can go to Greg.
Well, I'll tell you what I like the most about having a homebrew version of the Forgotten Realms. Being older than dirt, I grew up with the Forgotten Realms. I bought the box sets and had the buildable maps, so I could go all the way from coast to Thay and all points west and east and south and north. And though I don't know everything about the Forgotten Realms by any mad stretch of the imagination, I'm familiar and comfortable with the realms. I know where Neverwinter is. I know where Baldur's Gate is. I know Waterdeep. It's in between them. I know all those little bells and whistles. But when Will took a hold of them and brought in the Tomb of Annihilation and how the events of that played into a reconstruction of existing politics and standards, and even kind of like how just like the pecking order, how everything was kind of switched with this undead embrace and problem. It was awesome. I was off balance the whole time, which is exactly what you want as a player. I don't want to be comfortable ever. I want to be completely on edge. I want to make sure that I'm making decisions that don't have prior knowledge backing them up. And I didn't. And that was great. And that was my favorite thing about it, was just that inevitable chaos that comes with changing up something. And changing up something known makes it even better, because you think you know it, but you don't. And that's the best.
Awesome. Sid, same question. Your thoughts?
My thoughts.
Your thoughts on the season, yeah.
I don't know.
Tell us about Fighter. What did you think about doing a Fighter?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like super just like not here. It was fun. I don't know.
We can move on to Tool School.
Yeah, go talk.
I mean, I had a blast. I am actually not super familiar with the Sword Coast, so for me, experiencing these very known places through a homebrew setting made them feel very, very new and off balance to me as well. Other than that, my first impressions, sort of now of Neverwinter, are in this, like this, instead of necessarily in the normal way. For me, as Miguel was, I'm usually Mr. Stoic Paladin and things like that. So to play Miguel for me was very interesting and challenging and a ton of fun. I had a blast with him. I had a very interesting time discovering him as a character. He sort of began as a caricature, and then even after episode 1 grew a little bit about who he was, just about, he's the guy everything's always gone right for, to the last episode where I think he had sort of grown into this member, thinking about others more than thinking about himself. So I thought it was a very interesting journey for me as a role player to go on with Miguel. And also, I'm sure we'll all touch on it, the relationships, the inter-party relationships, I think in this have been probably some of the most sort of pure. I mean,
Right.
A lot of times, there's always, everyone likes to have like the edgy this and the edgy that. I mean, and we all were pretty much, lived up to our names, wild cards. We were the crazy ones of every, the one crazy guy who would be in normally the group of edgelords in your D&D campaign, except for Zephyr, of course. But still Zephyr, I think gave a nice counterpoint, but without being just tragic and broody all the time.
Right. Yeah, no, that was something I was just about to touch on. Really, was the characters and their relationships with one another were, kind of unique. I think, like, it's not often that I play a group of players and all the characters are basically just like good friends. So the first session with Ferrin and Rufus, with the scene in the circus, set the tone perfectly, I think.
Taking life seriously,
And then taking lives.
Yeah, then
Yes.
taking lives seriously, taking those lives. Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree. It was interesting too how the relationships go. Sometimes I think it gets hard when you start a campaign to like find all the reasons why people would travel together, right? Right. Why are you on this adventure together? And simply giving, I think, Greg and Saul a list that was like, your name's on it, right? Or that, Zephyr, they had just a list with our names on it, and they came to us, and because Sid and I played our characters, honestly and kind of naive because they were, why wouldn't we go with people that have our names on the list? I love the fact that the story didn't require this like deep-seated need to go on adventure together. It's almost like adventure kind of found us as we accepted it, as simply as it was. I thought it was a great beginning, if you would, and the circus, like you said, was kind of a cherry on top of the ice cream.
Yeah, it definitely played against the trope that destiny needed to manifest itself in order to be.
Yeah, it didn't have. Yeah, we were just, we just were, and it all kind of was serendipitous in how it started, and in that was something like cool and special and kind of friendly, as you said, and be a group of friends.
Definitely. And touching on Zephyr for a moment, I really loved the boat, or the boat motif throughout the whole thing. Was super cool, and the whole crew theme was
like a baby over that. God. And I was like, oh God, rip me up.
Well, I mean, with you having a sort of role play our level ups as well. I mean, some of our the Tempest Beloved really became our home even more than Mutt's. It really became this. I mean, the Tempest Beloved became a character in just as much as anything else. I mean, when Miguel got his wings, when Zephyr, leveled up and got his things, the whole idea of Nepertak, becoming a part of the crew and, up there with Ferrin, learning how to steer the ship. I mean, I know you as DM conceit, you're like, oh yeah, sure, you've got a pirate ship, it's docked, you can never move it because level ones don't have pirate ships. But I mean, I would say kudos to Will on, dear Lord, letting whatever was originally truly planned for this insanity to end up what it was, and still being such a great story, and being able to tie it together and tie it up with such a great little bow in so many places.
Yeah, it's super easy when you have players who are really good role players. The story just sort of writes itself in a way because your characters have really strong motivations to do certain actions, and so they immediately go and do them, and they become quests in and of themselves, even if they're not something which is, for instance, the best example is at the end of the season, where it's like, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to go down to the beach and we're summoning my dad. You know, I'm going to call up my dad instead.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, like, I don't know, like that's something of Greg's backstory. Like we can do that, and then, you know, it's become a whole thing because it's already written by the players, which is I think in one of the first Tomb Insights talking about getting the character backstories in and tying in character backstories to a campaign, because it's like, not only is it super cool for you guys as players, but it's also really great for me because I don't have to write it, right? You know, it's like I don't have to find a really unique thing that you guys personally would think was cool for your character. I don't have to make that up. You guys have already thought of the really unique, cool thing for your character, and I just have to, like, you know, bring that in. So, yeah, it's surprisingly not a huge task of like manipulation and moving tens of thousands of words around a page until they get into the right sequence. It's sort of like, yeah, sure, I don't know, you guys do this. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good question out there from first one from Genly AI. Being learned by play, what would each of you like the viewer to take home based on your own contribution? In other words, what do you guys think we can most learn from each of you based on your own styles?
Ooh, good question. I guess reiterating what I just said there, but not to prep too much and to roll with it as a DM, and to not take it too seriously. Have fun. There's a lot that goes into I don't know. DMing stuff is a very serious business. You know, you must seriously consider yourself a dungeon master. You must grow a beard and own a Trans Am. You know, it's yeah, just have fun with it, really.
I didn't know that was
okay. I didn't know I got a Trans Am out of this.
Page 3 of the DMG. Check it out.
Okay, well, I've been doing it all wrong. Okay.
Well.
Yeah, I would. It's an excellent question. I would say this. I only get away with the nonsense that I do because I have a fantastic DM in Will. We have played a lot together. Just what he said. He had something established and my character went another direction. You got to be careful doing that with a DM that they have a different style, you have a different style. That can mesh. It takes time to kind of work on that type of narrative. You can do it in smaller steps. If there's D&D etiquette, I was right up to the edge there with exactly what I was doing last week, and it's a testament to how amazing Will is that he was like, oh no, yeah, we'll do this, and then he just went with it, and that's amazing. And I've played with a lot of people. I've been DM'd by a lot of great people, and no one has ever drilled into the fact that I'm insane and I'm not going to play by a lot of rules better than Will. Will's just like, he gives me a long leash to hang myself and to do other things. And
I like that.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I couldn't enjoy it more. It's amazing. And then when you have a crew like this who sees what's going on and they go, oh, yeah, okay, and they just jump, and that free fall is why RPGs are the best, man. It's an awesome question, but yeah, know your audience when you try stupid stuff like that.
I guess for me, I think it sort of ties into that. One of the things that I struggle with as a role player, and I'm first to admit it, is stepping in and sometimes overtaking things. And certainly with a character like Miguel, it can be very easy to do that because that's kind of somewhat part of his character. The thing is, I will tell you, some of his best scenes and things that I enjoyed doing the most was when I was ready to jump in, but I bit my tongue, waited and listened and waited and listened, and then bit my tongue again and waited and listened one more time, and then finally came in. I mean, this whole last thing, I mean, I was ready to backseat DM and come to Will's aid of, we should just summon the demon. And I'm like, no, let's see what Greg's up to. Come on, Will really wants to summon this demon. We're gonna have a demon fight. You should let that happen. I'm like, bite your tongue again. And at the end of it, I wouldn't have had the amazing things that I did. Then it was okay, go, back up your cast member. And I was like, me, and this was me totally being meta. I mean, 100% meta. This is why you don't meta. I'm like, a demon lord's like is like CR 23, and a genie's like CR maybe 13. So maybe if I add the Kotal Khan, who's like a CR 5, when you add those together, maybe that will be enough, and so we can convince Will that the math works. Because I'm an engineer, and so
imagining that me doing math is hilarious.
Well, and then I realized, and so and was like, he has no idea the math. The math, any of this math, and so hey, let's go and have fun, and so I guess that would be my big thing is. If you've watched me with Will, and Will again throws me these incredible situations and softballs for me to knock out of the park with, with big, deep, emotional speeches, scenes, whatevers. And they're amazing. It feels amazing to them. It's great to watch chat react to them. Step back. Let your other players have those as well, because in the end, it's going to make when you get to step in even better. So remember, I'd say the takeaway for me is, remember to bite your tongue every once in a while, and make sure, it will end up making the story and everything better. You don't have to carry it on, you don't have to dive into every single thing.
Yeah.
I'll add an asterisk to that, man. That's a fantastic comment about the pacing, but you said something about, let's see what Greg's up to. That's a dangerous little game. But
Oh, yeah.
Actually, mine kind of builds off of that, which is more character specific, that like adds to what Tall Squall is saying, which is that, D&D is a collaborative process between everybody. It's a negotiation at the table at all points. But between everyone, and so when you're building a character, I think sometimes we get really stuck. And like, let's be real, like, how frequently do I play a serious character? Like, rarely ever, right? But comedy, and what's great about comedy, what I love about it, is that it has balance to it, that it adds and can make a moment. And so I think even as somebody that Rufus, that most people would innately say is a comedic character, had to find those real moments where he had to come to terms with reality. And in that are like opportunity to help ground that character, to give moments to other characters, right? Or to help build off of them, like where our two incredible people are calling on, genies and gods. And Rufus is like, I'm gonna say a prayer, because that's how I know to add. And it's such a small, simple thing that in such a way, like, added to that moment and was super serious. So even though he crushes people with his body and belly bounces liches out of windows, he also has to find like real moments. So I would say, that's something that I would hope that you can take away, is that as you're building your characters, recognize they're never going to be completely serious. They're never going to be completely comedic. And that is balance that you need at the table as a player, to also add to the larger story that's happening, the collaborative process that's going on.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah, and to me the prayer scene was one of my favorite parts of last episode. It caught me as much as anything. Your plea to Lathander, and because I was when we were doing it, I was kind of thinking, how do we make this so that all four of us sort of bring something to the table to save Nepertak. And the fact that I completely forgot. I knew you were son. I'm like, we got to do that. And then you were like, yeah, it's a Lathander. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think all of us, when everybody starts, you have to find that balance at the table. And I think we found it very quickly, because I love working with these people and they bring so much to the table. And it was really interesting just to watch things like go and happen in balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And while Rufus, yeah, like you say, was a comedic character, he definitely had those moments where he was very much not two-dimensional, I suppose, in just being a comedy person, but also, you know, people who are comedic in some ways often can be have those moments where they're
tragic too in that.
Yeah.
Right? Like comedy and tragedy, they're such a like close. They walk so closely together.
Yeah. Cool. So Indy asked if you had to do it all over again, one thing you would change and one thing you would never change. It's a good question. That's a tough one.
Oh, I know mine.
Duh. I gotta hear it.
Mine is that I put it all on the line to kill Tasker. In episode 1.
Oh yeah.
That I went for the one shot and the roll to kill Taskar and be able to bring him back to get out of that room with the Tabaxi.
That was a good moment though. I remember like
It
the
was.
end of the first episode, second episode, and I was like, fuck.
So is that the one you'd keep or the one you'd get rid of?
Oh no, that's the one I would absolutely keep. Oh, is there one to get rid of too?
Yeah.
What would
the
I
idea
get?
is like, what would you want to change or redo?
Oh no, that
And
one
like,
I
what
would
you
definitely keep. Oh, and one to get rid of. Oh my god! Unfortunately, everything that's going to my mind is Turncloak stuff. It's like things I would have done differently in Turncloaks.
I know what I would have gotten rid of.
Okay, go for it.
I gotten rid of. I know what I would have rewritten. Nothing deserves to be getting rid of. I would have rewritten the time, which is when we attempted to do our second performance on the dock with the pirates.
Oh,
Oh,
I
yeah.
really wish I could have rewritten that moment.
when
Baron,
Baron shot Rufus in the back or Miguel in the back.
Yeah, somebody
Shot
guys
Miguel in
Baron
the back.
and it just like was not our like prime moment. I don't think as a crew we were just like we were so
yeah, we got
rocky.
really slappy that episode.
Yeah, and we're trying to like move all these kids. It was like a great plan.
Yeah,
I think
93 kids, Will.
Yeah, and these pirates are like, why are you moving children to a boat? Yeah, that one is definitely one for a little rewriting. What would I keep?
Ooh, I know my get rid of. The Tabaxi, he sells things. I think it would be that I kind of like was negotiating with him and then just handed him a ton of gold, and I'm like, wait, I wanted to do a roll there somewhere, and then I mean it was like one of those things where I was like, I basically just suddenly handed him the gold before I even like tried to do a persuasion check or anything. I'm like, well, that stuck, but it's probably very Miguel as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think actually I would choose to keep the moment that just couldn't go anywhere is the Lich moment where I belly bounced her out the window. It was just one of those like serendipitous things, like the dice gods were just with me. Like that could have ended really, really poorly, and I rolled high enough to make it like worthwhile. So thank you, dice gods. But that's one of those moments that like I wouldn't change, not for the world. Throwing a Lich out of a window.
The one thing that I would change would be I want to know what happens to Howard, and
I want to know what happens to Howard. I
It's
agree.
a whole other story.
Our story, yeah, it's a whole line of novels.
For
and stuff.
Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally, pretty much what you're taking home is having Will as a DM. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to know what happened to Howard. A moment that I wouldn't change. That's so tough. There were some really good moments, like maybe not necessarily like exact moments, but that session where you guys rolled like 20 nat 20s or something like that. I just couldn't fucking do anything.
Yeah, the battle with it was the battle with Valindra, and
Yeah,
with
it was.
Valindra and the little the little guy.
Yep. There you go. Let's see. What's the next question here? I'm not looking properly. Scroll down.
I've got him in a Google Doc. If you want
I see that now. A man doctor asks, what are some ways that help people who have different styles work together as a team? It's a great question.
It's a good question. And it's one that I think a lot of people, especially if you're playing in person, can struggle with if you're not playing online. Because online allows you to play with just lots of different people, so you just have a wider range of people to play with. If you're doing in person, I find that, like, and I've gone through the same thing where the table dynamic is just not right. So session zeros are important for a reason. And I suggest everybody have one where you just get together and just do something off the cuff to make sure everybody's going to work together okay and game styles are the same. But if you get deep into a campaign and styles are beginning to change, I usually say it's time to have like a come together and let's talk about like openly about table dynamic. Like if you have somebody that really loves to role play and then you have a whole other group of people that don't, and they're number crunchers, we're mappers, and we love combat. How can we balance that? The role play may have to come down and go back to a little bit of gameplay, and gameplay may have to let up to allow for a little more story.
Yeah. Well, I know this is something that I think, Sid, you've encountered before as well, with different styles of players. And as a DM, what have you done, or what would you advise, I suppose, in that kind of scenario?
Yeah. So, I think something that people need to realize is D&D it's just one game, right? Like there's the same rules. Everybody has the same rules. Everybody has access to the same stuff. But my D&D is totally different from your D&D and your D&D and your D&D and your D&D. Everybody has their own D&D. In your heart, it's different. It's
sure.
Everybody has their own little game inside. And so sometimes your D&D is not their D&D, and they're just not going to be the same game. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have fun, but
there are different alphabets of D&D.
Sometimes you need to find someone that's got your G and F, and
yeah.
But I say look for the people that value the same things in D&D. They like to focus on the same aspects. And if you're in a group of people that you really like, but you don't value the same things, most of the time you can come to a compromise. It's this session, I really want to have I want to role play out this scene. And if they're normal, nice, decent people, they'll probably just let you have your RP spotlight because they don't want to do that. And it doesn't make the game bad or not fun. Maybe they like to watch it. It's just, you don't even have to make them role play if they're not into that. You can all share different spotlights on different aspects, and then whenever it comes to combat, let them go on a 5-minute description of how they hit this guy in the face, because that's their D&D and that's what they like. So just let everybody have their own little D&D shining moment, and it'll be fine. Don't try to make everybody else's D&D your D&D, because it's not going to work.
Well, and I think one of the things, you were saying it, Chelsea, is first in communication, but also that session zero. The one nice part with D&D right now, there's a vocabulary that is a common vocabulary that we can use for people who are looking for D&D. I know when I first cast my campaign, this was a year and a half ago, but is even more true now. You can pretty much say, I plan on running a very critical role RP heavy game. That immediately lets people get that sort of an idea of what it is. Or I run a very mechanics heavy, combat based tactical system. And I don't know, the correct, if there's a stream that does that specifically. But you can even say, there's enough now examples of D&D out there that you can sort of do a vocabulary of, say, from day one, hey, as a DM, this is what I'm running. If you're not interested, that's cool. Let me help you find someone who runs a very mechanics-driven game, if that's what you're looking for, or a very RP-driven game, or some balance in the middle. So kind of use the vocabulary that we're so lucky to have in this era of D&D to explain what you're doing. There's a lot of people who turn into turncloaks, and, it is a actual play podcast that, I don't know, what do you think, Will? Have we had in 30 some odd episodes, if we've had 100 roles, I would be shocked.
Right, yeah.
No.
I think it's probably 50 total roles in the entire thing. We are there
it's the main critique of the show, actually, that
yeah.
I don't make you roll enough, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are there I mean, telling a story. And there are times when, the dice outcomes are more about how did your story go, not necessarily how did your sword hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, to pick up, sorry, finding mute button there. To pick up on you guys are saying, just pretty much echo the same sentiments. Really, there's no right way to play D&D, but there's definitely a right way to play D&D for you, right? Like for me, there are certain ways of playing D&D that are not right for me. Doesn't mean that they're invalid as a whole. Just means that I won't get as much enjoyment out of them. So yeah, I think it's definitely best to just be honest about what you like as a player, as well as a dungeon master when you're about to go into a campaign. It would be, I think a lot of the time people are just so excited to play D&D in any setting that like you just rush into things, and then you realize that, oh well, actually D&D is really fun when you're having fun, but D&D is the worst thing when you're not having a good time, because you know that you should be having a good time. It's not like work, right? When you go into like work, you're not meant to be having a fun time, so you're like prepared mentally for like, yeah, okay, this is going to be mind-numbing. But when you go to play D&D, which is like in your spare time or like the weekends, in like the quality time, the few hours that you have each week, and then you're not having fun, it's the most soul-crushing thing. So definitely be honest with yourself and with the other players at the table, because while like it's definitely seen an uprise with games like Critical Role, the games like Learn by Play, which are very narratively driven, doesn't mean that they're the only and right way to play. So if you get enjoyment, then there's no shame in doing a dungeon crawl if you and everyone involved are going to have fun with that. Mm. Anyone else got anything on this, or do you want to jump to the next question?
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. All right. Idiot Viking asks, weird question. I like weird questions. But your weirdest, funniest game moment that happened in real life. So parents coming into your room with their church group while you're playing an RPG. Something like that.
I have one of these. I do have a good one.
Specific. Go ahead.
I got one.
So my last apartment, the main door to the apartment had an issue like latching and closing. So if you didn't like put the deadbolt on, sometimes when the AC would turn on, like the pressure would like click the door open.
Sure.
So I had all my friends over, we were playing our like IRL game, and because they don't play near as much as I do, like to even like put costumes on and stuff. So we're talking like we're sitting around with elf ears on and cloaks and the whole nine. Some of us have our like stabs and weapons and the whole 9 yards, okay? And it's probably 6 o'clock, and there's a knock on the door, and it's the UPS guy, but he knocks hard enough and the door wasn't locked that it swung open, and here's like the 7 of us around a table on the floor with like mats and stuff, dressed like wizards and elves. And the UPS guy's like,
I'm about to die.
This
is how it ends.
And because I love my IRL games, I like atmosphere, so I put candles on and we turn out the lights, and like I have lanterns, and like it was embarrassing. It was so embarrassing.
And take my package, right?
Yeah, he was like, please just come sign for this. Like he was petrified. That poor guy will never ever be the same.
I feel like mine is pretty similar to that, but just a little bit further. So it was Halloween, and it was the first year I'd ever joined Encounter Roleplay. And so we were doing a 2015.
Yeah.
Yes, we were doing a Halloween stream, and I was home by myself at this point in time, and we were all like dressed up. So I had like this laptop right now is like duct taped together. It's like no crap. But I was like all set up in my dining room, home by myself, and had all this like Halloween-y stuff on, and I was wearing my costume. And like everybody on stream was wearing costumes, and the Zoom call was up, and I had all these like lights set up, and then there was a knock at the door, and I had to open it because nobody else was home. And this was this guy who came up, and he was like, "Hey, I need to come inside so I can test your water." It was like our water provider people.
Super sketchy. Like
they were like, "I need to test
your water."
No, it was like the like levels of our water. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Irrelevant. The water man needed to come inside my house, and I was like, I'm home here by myself, and my parents are home. At this time, I was like 16, 17, and so I was like, I'm not supposed to let strangers in the house. But I was like, and I'm in the middle of a D&D stream right now, and so like it's like live, like so I need to get back. And he was like, oh, I play D&D, and I was like, well, they're perfect. Come on my stream. So I brought him into my house, into our dining room.
Barry.
His name is Barry.
There's a
and
clip.
so- yes, there is, and I like brought him on. So like he was like, if he was like right here, and I brought him on stream. Everybody in their costumes. It's like Josh had blood all over his face for this show, and I was like, hello everyone, this is Barry. He came here to test my water, and he plays D&D. So I brought him on the show. And then later, I found him on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request, and I was like, hey, you remember me? You came and tested my water, and then you were on my D&D stream, and he blocked me. Like immediately.
It's enough. I actually have, for those of you in chat at the moment, the YouTube link. If you'd like to watch Barry arrive live on stream. It still to this day is !Barry in Encounter Roleplay's chat as a command, and it will bring you Outlaw Barry, and you can watch that video.
But I'll never see him again because he blocked me on Facebook.
Blocked you on Facebook.
Yeah.
Classic. I've got my most embarrassing thing on stream. I don't have a real life one because I'm boring and live alone and don't have people knocking on my doors, or I just don't answer.
Never answer the door.
Yeah, I just don't answer the door. Actually, when I'm back here in my office, if someone knocked on the front door, I'm not sure if I'd hear them, especially with headphones on.
Yeah. You know what? I wonder how Barry tells that story.
Yeah, I want to know Barry.
Yeah.
What is Barry's story?
Okay, he
that night.
seemed to have a great time when he came on the show. I thought we were buds. And then when he was leaving, he was telling me about his game that he was GMing, and he was like, I'm basing it off of Sword Art Online, which is my favorite anime, and he was like, we're going through all, like, I was like, oh my god, he's going through all 100 levels of Aincrad, that's so cool. Like, we bonded, and then, what? I'm still really raw, okay?
They always lay down in the end.
Barry.
I was going to say 3 years later.
I'm still upset.
I'm trying to think, like, the only real life one was actually the church thing when we think of it, when I was at Sid's place in Georgia several years ago. And you were out and your parents were out, and I was in the back room streaming, and I hear the door go, and I'm like, goodness, what on earth is the protocol here? Like, do I answer someone else's door? Presumably, I do.
You are so British.
I have no idea. You know, where is the manual on this? There is.
I don't even think I know this story.
This is uncharted territory.
When did you
I
answer
must
my
have
door?
told you. So, I'm in uncharted waters right now. So I'm like, well, it would be rude not to answer the door in case they're expecting a package or something, and then maybe there'd be a whole process. So this all goes through my brain in approximately a second. So I run to the door, open the door, and it's a man. He introduced himself, I think as Jonah or something. He was very small, as he was just like weedy and sweaty, and he was wearing like a straw hat with something on it. And he gave me this like pamphlet for Jesus, right? This Jesus pamphlet.
Oh.
So
You got the door-to-door Jesus salesman.
Yeah. Jesus came knocking. So I was like, this is interesting. But here's the thing, like only seconds before, it was a Wednesday at the time, so I was just about to start my Call of Cthulhu stream. So in my panic, I hit click stream, so I like went onto the countdown for Call of Cthulhu. I went to the door and I'm like, gotta make this quick, get a package. Answered Jonah. He asked me if I've met my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I haven't.
Welcome to Georgia.
Lots of love to Jesus and all, but it was my cup of tea. So I was saying, no, not really, but this is all great. I'll take your pamphlet. Thanks. I've got to go because I've got my Call of Cthulhu stream. And this guy, he did not look happy with that at all. He did not seem pleased with the idea that I was off to go and worship some eldritch creatures. Yeah, it was odd. I went and streamed. I mean, it was fine. I went straight away. He didn't stop me. He did ask if I'd make a contribution to that church. I didn't. I didn't.
Tell him you were making it to Cthulhu today instead.
Yeah.
Mine is off of way back in the days when there was the religious scare in the 80s, where of course D&D was causing people to
Panic.
Satanic panic, right? Everybody was, this has to be the reason why the world's going to hell. of course, we all know now that it
Little
was.
did we know that.
Now we know. Now we
Right.
know. It's actually no. Well,
Yeah, and
So, what ended up happening was the bookstores in my town stopped selling D&D. So you had to order to get like the player's handbook. You had to order to get a module. But back in the day, we were drawing on cave walls at the time. But the only way to get dice, the only place in my town that would sell dice, was the local adult bookstore. That was
Oh, here we
wall porn. Right.
go. Wall to wall.
Here
I feel like D&D
I-
setting coming on.
I'm 11 or 12. I ride the bus in from my country house into the city, beeline to the porn shop to buy dice. I'm so cool, I'm going to buy dice. And so I go in, and I am literally that meme that just has the sweat pouring off of me in absolute waves, as everything that I'm wearing is drenched in flop sweat. As I walk in and I try to have those blinders on where I'm just looking at my feet and so I don't fall, but there's just anatomy everywhere. And as I walk in, of course, you have to leave. I'm here to buy dice. And so the guy serves me as I'm picking out my dice, and I don't even think. I just start grabbing, D20s
Pistols.
and whatever. Just put these in, and they put it in a brown paper bag. So they put it. That's all they have, of course.
Of course.
Brown solid paper bags. So they put the brown paper bag about magazine size, you would say, because that's all they
Well, they
sell.
have.
So I grab it, rush outside, covered in sweat. My glasses are actually fogged up. I'm so warm and just uncomfortable. And as I run out with my bag full of dice, boom, into the church choir group who's going on their way to McDonald's. to get some coffee. The next week at church, my parents hear no fewer than a dozen times how I ran out of the porn store with a bag. Ladies and gentlemen,
All for the love of dice. All for
That's
the
dedication.
there is your D&D dedicated story. Yeah, what it was like back in the 80s, kids.
Yeah, right.
Back in me and Grimjack's day.
Outdoors just to get dice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we've all got some good stories there about real life and D&D. There you go. Okay, so this is back more onto the topic of actual games. Kenji asks, what is a good background for a fighter who wants equality for nobles and the commoners? Goodness. I struggle to think of what the backgrounds all are. Maybe a noble background.
You could also go folk hero. Like if you want to
Yeah,
Folk
folk
hero.
hero. I would say you
That's
go
what-
folk.
that's-
You go folk hero.
That's what Rufus was.
Yeah, no, that's what Gavin is. Gavin is a folk hero.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
whole idea of fighting for the common man. I would think so. I would go with that one, especially for a fighter. To be a folk hero that he very Robin Hood-esque but with a sword type idea.
Yeah, I guess the question is like, why do they want equality between them? Is it because they were a noble and like lost everything, and then you can be a noble? It's like they hated the establishment because they were a part of it, and now they want to take it down, or is it because they've always been a commoner and they want, they hate the, whatever, the monarch, all that. Like America, what's up?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you could play that, Like, I think for Rufus, the reason he was a folk hero is because he got out of his small town. So you could even be a commoner that becomes a noble. Like, what's the story there? Like, yeah, I think Sydney's right. It's all about the story that you're wanting to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost make any background support your story if you really think through what the story you want it to be. I mean, if you're thinking about meta-wise, a lot of the backgrounds don't. I mean, they add flavor meta. They don't add. There's you can always go with Outlander, which people love to do. I think it's Outlander that lets you get forage food for enough for your party. Without that's always if you're going for the I'm here to make my optimize my party. But I mean, as far as for just storytelling, I mean, to have him be a noble, noble background, but now fighting for the commoner. To have him be a folk hero, have him be a hermit. that thinks that all of structures of society are, need to be broken down. I mean, you can do a lot of things. Think about the trope that goes along with the background. When it says guild artisan, okay, what does that really mean? I mean, maybe he's like all into, art, and that, was either shunned by the nobles or liked by the common men. I mean, you can take most any of them, and sometimes the least optimum pairing will give you the best outcome story-wise, especially in high RP.
Yep.
Yeah. It's all about finding the story first, I think. And then you can, like, as far as backgrounds go, they're, like, statistically change very little. So, I mean, it's usually proficiencies and maybe a skill or something like that.
Sometimes you'll get items, like extra
Yeah,
items.
like an item or something like that. But, like, you can just go around and change bits from either, I like this bit from the hermit, I like this bit from the noble, and create your own. I think one of the last characters I made for the Midgard campaign we're doing on Encounter Roleplay at the moment is a mixture of 3 or 4 different backgrounds, because I want the trinket from this bit, and I want the skill proficiencies from here, and as long as it's okay with your DM, why not?
Well, I mean, even in D&D Beyond, they show you how to build your own background.
Yep.
I mean, there's very specific rules of how to build a background, and it's pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. Let's see. Tick X asks, what was the most awkward moment in game for everyone? I'm not sure if just this season or just ever.
Or is that like a follow-up in general?
Could be. Yeah, it could be a follow-up to the general awkwardness that people in chat seem to be interested.
I know which mine is. I mean, Will probably knows this as well. It is playing Numenera when we were stuck. I don't even know what level we were at. We were at level 2, whatever it is there. Basically the equivalent of level 1. I mean, we were like tier 1. We had run upstairs, the entire party. We were trapped. I mean, we were dead for rights, going to get captured. We had locked ourselves in a room, and the guards who were looking for us were going door to door, trying to find us. And so, I think we asked Mitch Swayze, like, is there any way to get these people? You tell me, figure out a way to make it so that this guy doesn't come in. And I'm sitting here digging through my equipment, and I had this oddity. Yeah, you know what it is. I had this oddity that changed your voice from male to female. And of course, I'm doing Tempest, who is like this anthropomorphic displacer beast whose voice is like this. He has this real rumble voice that he speaks in all the time. It makes your voice turn from male to female. And I basically reenacted the scene from when Harry met Sally. And basically, as though there was people having sex in the room, and did full-blown, on-stream, fake orgasm. Fake female orgasm. And
audiographic, it was.
Yes. I think it was Josh all but fell out of his chair. There's a clip somewhere, if you guys want to dig through.
Link. Can we have a link for that one?
Yeah, is there a link for that one? I'd like to.
It's in like one of your top clips. I know that
I think it
on
might
the ERP.
Disappeared from the internet. Weird.
Yes, it is. Of course, it is gone. It will never to be seen again.
The ages.
Yes. I'm sure it is gone forever.
Yep.
But
definitely don't have it saved on my desktop.
That would either that or you have it saved on your desktop.
Yeah, that was an awkward scene.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I've never seen Tall School go so red, so
Oh yeah, and that was still when I was like, just sort of very. I mean, that was early in my streaming,
Anyone else got any awkward moments they'd like to share with the class?
I have like 2 that I'm thinking about. One of them wasn't so much awkward; it was just super funny. In this like a really really long like IRL game that I played from all out high school, the same game, same characters. Two of the PCs, mine and another one, they were gonna get married, and we were all in high school, so we're not gonna like act out the honeymoon. We're not doing that. But our DM at the time was Rim, and he did the funniest thing. Like, I'll never ever forget this thing. It was one of the funniest things that ever happened. He made us like roll for like the proportions like of our body. Like, so it was like we had to roll to see if like my husband got like Michael Cera's arms or like John Cena's, and we had to like roll for like everything, and it was so funny. But like an awkward moment that I remember that I think that everybody here will really appreciate is when we were doing the podcast of Annihilation.
Oh.
This is so good. When we were doing the podcast of Annihilation, we had a fantastic guest from You Meet in a Tavern, that podcast. Which
Yes, Brian from You Meet in a Tavern. Strongly recommend.
Yes, this podcast, like, no shade, no anything. It's a fantastic comedic podcast. Like, go listen to it. But this poor soul entered into our podcast, which is Turncloaks, which is like dark, gritty, low magic, no humor. Everyone's dying, everyone's sad, everyone's crying. And he he came in, and we were talking about like marching order, and he like went to make a joke, and was like, we were like, what's the order? And he was like, I'll take the rear. That's where I'm used to being. Like, setting us up for a joke.
Right,
and every single one of us just like...
It's like a 7-second, like let that one pass.
And, like, you can even see it, like, in the Audacity track. There's a 7-second just silence from everyone, because we're all trying to keep it so serious. But we all were like... So funny. Because, like, nobody could, like, hop onto that joke, but we all wanted to, but we all know that we couldn't, and I felt so bad for him, because he probably was like, well, damn, okay, sorry. It was hilarious.
It's like when something really funny happens, but your teacher's like 5 feet in front of you, so like you're holding in the laugh, and that makes it about 10 times funnier. When
It was so funny.
Anyone else getting other awkward moments, or are we good to move on?
I mean, I guess it's awkward. See, it's hard to make me feel awkward because I am probably the most awkward person you'll ever meet in IRL. But my first stream, and I'm going to say this one because Greg was an initiator in this moment. Okay? It was my first D&D stream ever on my Twitch channel. I had invited some of my previous DMs to be involved. Greg was one of them. And being the noob I am, I had to pee so bad in the middle after I was DMing a one-off, and I had to pee so bad. I was like, okay, gang, I need like 2 minutes. Like, give me 2 minutes. I'm about to explode. So I got up, and while I was gone, all of them plotted against me in the moment, live for everybody to see. And they were like, what are we going to do? Oh. And it was you, Greg, right? We should all freeze. Isn't that what you said? And all four of them, it was like magic.
It was me.
He was like, yeah, everybody should freeze. And the four of them, you saw the light bulbs go, yes. And the four of them like, and they didn't move a muscle for like a whole 30 seconds.
Oh my
I got
God.
back from the bathroom, and I sat down and was like, oh God, oh no, I've lost the stream. Like, while the three of them were like, they're like frozen. And Greg couldn't hold it because he's so sweet. And he broke it. I was like, damn it, you guys! I lost it on stream. There's a clip out there somewhere of that too. It's really funny. No, I actually really love him for it. It was like a nice little initiation on my first hosted stream. It was really adorable. But yeah, that's probably me at my most awkward.
I swear to God, if you ever pull that shit, Greg.
I said, listen, I was in there with some real heavy hitter a-holes. No, I'm joking. My phone was out. When we were out there, I was like, hey, let's all freeze. And Scrat and Grant and Rem, they're all like, yep, let's do it. And they immediately froze, and I'm like, we're in it.
I'm
And
gonna
so
find it. It's out there.
when we froze, we were sitting there, and when she got back on, I thought, man, if somebody had done this to the first stream I did live, I'd be bawling, I'd be crying. And when she sat down, and I could see the mouse going over her screen.
Like trying to get it to come back here.
I thought, oh my God, I've got to come out of this, and I still waited 5 seconds before.
They waited so long. Like, the commitment was so intense. Especially after I went back and watched it. Just, you guys killed me. You killed me.
I will tell you this. The one awkward moment I had was in, I've had a million awkward moments, but the one I had in this show was at the very first episode. And you're sitting there and you're trying to get a feel of your character, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've never played a barbarian, I've never played an air genasi, get this guy and blah blah blah. And then, oh hey, Tall's really funny. Oh, Miguel's just kind of like, this very charismatic, very suave. And then here comes Rufus, and I'm like, oh man, Rufus is really funny. Then here comes Farron, and Farron and Rufus are like a real funny duo. And I went, oh no. And the next line I knew it. I was a straight man. And I'm like, damn it. So.
Amazing. Well, there you have it, folks. Some pretty awkward moments. I can think of a few others, but I told the stories recently on other streams, so I won't go into them now. But yeah, some strange stuff happens.
I say, with all as much as you stream, it's got to be like once a week. You've got crazy stuff that
well,
goes
that's funny.
down.
Like the freezing thing is particularly triggering for me because I did like 2 years of using Skype and streaming. Well, that was just my life on like a crappy Wi-Fi connection, and so like
PTSD.
yeah, whenever like something starts not working, my mood turns from like 10 to like -10 in approximately 2 seconds.
I can confirm this.
I don't get upset. I just absolutely.
What?
I mean, not like sad upset. I get like mad, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Executive Hollow is basically why is Critical Role good, or why is Critical Role successful?
There's a bunch of reasons. If you want to talk about, like, if you want to talk about it from like a marketing perspective or a social media perspective, not from like it's just a really great quality show with extremely talented people. It's a group of people who are influencers on their own and were influencers on their own before this ever happened. So they came together and brought all of their like separate audiences to it. They weren't just like, hey, we don't do anything. We're regular, normal people that, work normal ops jobs and don't have fans. Let's start a show, and it blew up. It's, hey, we're a group of incredibly talented, famous voice actors and actors. Let's play D&D together. Of course people are going to watch it, and people are going to watch it because they're already fans. And so, like, pair like a group of people that already have hundreds of thousands of fans individually with the fact that it's a fantastic D&D show. It's fantastic role-playing, fantastic DMing, fantastic cast, amazing stories, amazing characters, like an incredible example of what D&D live shows are supposed to be like.
Well, can be.
Can be.
And can be, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you get an audience from that on top of an audience that's going to be there no matter what because they're already fans of the people. So it's like a merging of two huge audiences. That's why.
Yeah, timing is everything. It really is. I mean, like, you take a really great show idea, and the same goes for like any like movie that was critically acclaimed of its time or before its time. It just times, it's like a factor of 1,000 where it can go if you're the first to do something and do it really well. So I really do think timing is a great one. But like, great cast, great story, great production. And then time it with, this is just like the crux of when D&D is exploding for 5th edition. And the internet is really becoming a medium where people are actually listening and watching D&D, the rise of Acquisitions Inc. And then this idea of Twitch is also exploding at the same time. So it's a platform thing as well, where Twitch is like really just taking over the live streaming platform away from Justin TV and YouTube gaming, which never was ever a thing. So like, yeah, there's a lot of factors at play there, but timing.
I think everyone knows I wax about Critical Role a lot. I think that there is, certainly everything that they said, but there is Matt's style of how he DMs is very, it's easy to get caught up in. It's very much presented, and certainly being a voice actor and doing all the things that he's done, his DMing is presented very much in almost an audiobook style. I know I got hooked on Critical Role not by watching it, but by listening to it. It was something to stick in my ear while I was right in the middle of horrible work, budget, blah, 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 blah. And it was something that I didn't have to have my eyes on the screen to experience. As I got more wrapped into it, now it's almost, I hardly can listen to it without watching as well, because you realize further into it how much interaction is happening between the cast because they're all in the same room. So I think there is a piece to that as well. It is both a good gameplay session, but it is also very accessible just as a story, which I can tell you it can be somewhat difficult, for anyone to try to emulate. And I think that's, there's been so much discussion about this on the internet. Your game doesn't have to be Critical Role to still be a blast. And it's not wrong if it's not Critical Role. It's that you guys and your players are getting together and having fun. And if people are watching and having fun with you, that's great. But if you and your players are having fun, you're doing it right.
Yeah, I keep seeing, like, the same person saying, like, why are other shows, like, not successful? And you're pointing out shows that are successful. So, like, let's not come in here and throw other RPG shows under the bus because they're not Critical Role. Like, you don't have to be Critical Role to be a good RPG show. And, like, I don't know.
And I think, too, there's a lot of factors, right? Like, if you're talking about, even if it's not that they're good or bad, but that they have a percentage less of the audience than another show, there are so many factors that play into that, from literally how many people like Star Trek to how many more people just an open fantasy world can right? Like, there's just so many factors that go into that, and the number crunching, in my opinion, it takes away from the creativity, which is really the piece of why I think I personally love Twitch and love watching shows and live shows, is that it's a platform for people to be creative. And just like any other creative industry, right? Like, even if you talk movies, there's an indie market, right? There's a market that has a huge following of people and will never have the percentage as a giant blockbuster like Marvel, but that doesn't make them any less or more than another. Really, it just adds to the creative industry, and helps strengthen things like Twitch, so that more and more people can put their content out and grow their audience.
Yeah.
Well, also D&D is, like, so young, right? Like, on Twitch, it's like maybe 2 years of people, like, actually realizing this is a thing. Still more and more. But, like, if you go into the D&D category anytime, there aren't that many people streaming it for Twitch. Like, it's actually really, really small, in my opinion. Like, that's a very small one. It gets great numbers, like, and when it's when you just go to, like, browse and you see Critical Role streaming, or another big stream, and it's like 10,000 people watching D&D. But most of them are in one channel, and then you've got maybe 20 other channels. But if I go into, like, a mainstream video game like Hearthstone, which is really big on Twitch, there are hundreds upon hundreds. Like, you can't stop scrolling or finding people streaming it. And that will be the case, just you need to give it a few years, and the space is continuing to grow. And from something that I've been seeing on my side as someone who produces these shows, is that the industry leaders in role-playing games are really starting to actually realize that they need to be investing in Twitch and live streams as well. So I guess you could look at Critical Role as being the flagship, which is pushing everything forwards, but the rising tide lifts everyone else. So it's an aggregate thing, right? D&D is just growing in itself, so is Twitch, so is everything else. So you can expect shows to get more and more viewers as the years go by. But let's move on. Austin Van Halen asked, what will you guys remember the most on D&D? And I believe this is a question specifically about our time on the D&D channel of late.
So I have to say, chat is pretty incredible. Like, I just need to put that out there. In terms of, like, chats that I've been a part of, I really love D&D's audience that shows up to watch. It's just been, like, watching you guys make theories, like, come up with theories with us, and love the characters as much as we do, and make suggestions and crazy things. It just, like, you guys are really active, and it makes our jobs, in my opinion, so much easier.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we were talking about it at the end of last session when we, had our finale, and it's amazing to be having that live feedback from such a positive group of people who love D&D, love the game, love our characters, love to hear our stories. To see that you guys are crying along with us as we're chokily trying to deliver, our role playing, it's great. I mean, I think one of the things that I think I've learned across the board, because these days my D&D is, I would almost say it's 100%, because it's so rare I actually get to throw real dice in real time, in real life anymore, around a table, is while, to bring up Critical Role, it's amazing to all be sitting around a table and being to get together once every week and throwing dice together, and to be able to reach over and could have hugged Chelsea while she was doing her prayers. Rufus would have been amazing, but I don't think that it takes I think as a generation, and I'm certainly from the older generation, but the younger generation especially, this is just as real as sitting at a table for most people. The digital social space, people talk about, you're sitting at lunch and just staring at a phone. That is being in your social space, is connecting with your friends. The technology is such now that it allows us as players and as an amazing community to feel as though, we're all in it together, and sometimes even closer than if we actually were. If any of you ever have seen or gone to one of the live D&D games, like a Critical Role or a Chris Perkins game or whatever, and it's done in the theater, it's very much these days kind of like going to a sporting event live. You end up watching the Jumbotron. And so at that point, why not be watching it with either a small group of your friends at your house, or in a private chat channel that's hosting it, or with us here. So, to me, what I enjoyed most about D&D channel was re-solidifying that this type of gaming is just as valid and can be just as emotionally real as gaming or acting or RPing or doing whatever, all sitting around a table together.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got on a soapbox. I didn't mean to. See that whole thing about me sometimes just going, yeah. You should see me at work.
Favorite thing about the time on the D&D channel? What will I remember the most? There was like this odd moment. I think this is in the first season, and this isn't going to sound like a good thing, but it'll turn into a good thing, I promise. So in the first season, and there was someone had hosted the channel, rated a channel with like 3,000 viewers, and we're streaming. And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of, if in fact I don't think there was any.
I think it was just you, as before even we as the cast had mod rights.
Yes, well, so I think I was possibly the only mod on the channel at the time. This is some while ago, and they kept 3,000 people came in, and it was a totally different crowd than I used to from D&D. This is, where Twitch gets its bad reputation, is that people come in and spamming all sorts of horrible words and horrible things, and there are 3,000 people, and I'm trying to DM, and I'm trying to like moderate the channel and like ban, like, oh, there's never ban. So that wasn't a good moment, but I will always remember that. But then I spoke to D&D and I was like, hey guys, like this is the thing, like we need to, here's what I have set up on my channel in case anything like this has happened. Here's what I suggest. And within about 20 seconds we had a moderation team all over it, and we've been super lucky to have Obo Crazy here every week, but also it's amazing. But also just the setting up of like also mods, so that words that are potentially harmful or offensive just get blocked. So I was really pleased with like the swift response to that, and I'll definitely always remember D&D's dedication to making that this space, this channel in particular, a safe place for everyone. So yeah, that's what I will remember, I think. Anyone else got anything you think I remember?
I'll just say this. I started blindly grabbing dice from a plastic bin in a porn shop to make sure that I could play this game. And then later, as an old man and a father of two, I got a chance to play this game on the channel of the people that make this game. And I was so humbled to be able to do that. I couldn't sleep the night before I first came on the show, because all I could think of was I saw my old TSR books and my old, original covers of, well, not original, but second edition, and all of the fun that I had playing these sequestered in the little rooms where we nerds would gather while everyone else decided how awful they would be to us whenever we emerged from said rooms. And to be able to play, and then to be able to have a chat that was there saying, I love your character. Oh, I have this game. I'm playing this game. And to see in chat all of these games and all of these people, and my world as a 12-year-old, and now as a much older year-old, got so much bigger. And I met so many amazing, amazing people, artists and writers and players and friends and human beings, that this game became so much more than a game. And what does it mean to play on D&D? Everything.
Yeah, I remember when I got the offer to join this game, I literally had to get up from my classroom and go to the bathroom and cry, because I was so so overwhelmed by the idea. And I think it's right. It's kind of like a dream come true kind of a thing. Just unreal.
Yeah, I remember that first night for the first session of Tomb of Annihilation. And we were all, I believe we got on 45 minutes beforehand, just so we'd all make sure that our computers were running, everything was okay. It's like, so you don't touch anything, and we all just were sitting there. We were all just kind of like doing that, looking at each other and be like, okay, yep. And I hate to call you out on this, Will, but it is the one thing. It is one. Will is so smooth, so much of the time. And his only tell for when anything ever gets to his nervous is when he starts getting sewing machine leg. And literally his mic was going like this for like the whole first hour of us doing our first learn by play. And it was just like, when I saw Will nervous, I'm just like, oh God.
I think for me, now that I've like thought about it, so most of this season, Will and I were in the UK, so we would play this game on Saturday night till like 3 o'clock in the morning. So like it was like super late for us, and like we were both like always really tired, and I was like super tired, especially for like in the beginning, because I was like switching time zones, and so a lot of contributing factors made me struggle a lot with my ADHD. Like I was just so tired, and we were in this whole new place, and like I was like looking at all these new things, and also really wanted to go to bed, but also wanted to touch all these different things, and there would be a lot of moments where I was like, God, I'm not doing anything in this game because I don't know what's going on. I cannot make myself pay attention, and I hate it because I can't do anything about it. And I was always so scared that there were going to be like a ton of comments that, are like, she doesn't even play the game. Like, what is she doing here? She's not doing anything. And in actuality, I would get messages that were like, hey, I love your character on there. I want to make sure everything's okay. And so it was never like, hey, like, get over that. You need to step up. It was like, I love your character. I can tell, like, is something going on? I hope you're okay. And I was like, Oh my god. Thank you so much. Like, it was just like the sweetest thing because I was so scared coming onto the D&D channel and having this problem and like not being able to really do anything about it at the time, that it was just gonna like piss everybody off because I like wasn't up to par, wasn't giving people what they wanted, and like couldn't control it. And then everybody was just so nice and like comforting and then cared and wanted to make me feel better and good, and it was just so nice. It's like the complete opposite of what you expect when you come onto a platform that's bigger than your own. You expect like, you know, the trolls, the internet hatred, the comments, and we did not get any of that, and it was just the nicest thing ever.
Oh, good job, you guys. Yeah, just to touch on what you guys said as well. For me, getting the like the green light, I guess you could say, that we did the first season and then also the second season, meaning that we'd done something right, was super affirming. Because it had been pretty much my like career goal for 2 years since I must have been about 2 years ago. Since I started the channel, doing this, been doing it for about a year, full time. So it was super affirming to know that we were doing something right, and that was a big sort of goal and landmark for Encounter Roleplay. So I was super pleased and super duper nervous on the first night. The nerves definitely got better though. I remember like feeling really sick the first time, and then episode 2 was like, whatever, like I do this all the time.
Well, and again, I mean, we had such an amazing reception from everybody. So there you have it. I mean, how can you not, you know, when you've got a community that has got your back and has been there, and, you know, when we've made mistakes with rules or whatever, that we're not just having the, you know, everyone pulling it apart. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on. So, not sure what Kenji is meaning here, what moments you people liked more. I'm going to move on to the next one. Feel free to clarify that question. Vinny asked, for those GMs in the group, which I think is all of us, how much harder is it running a game digitally as opposed to around a table? I know for me, I read player reactions and side commentary, which I can't do on video. Restricted vision, and mics tend to stop interpretation of talk over.
Oh yeah, where people will speak over one another. I see what you mean. Like you lose things.
I love DMing like digitally.
Me too.
I absolutely love it because like I feel like I can have all my stuff where I want to put it. The whole desk is my space, and like I can have like all of the info there, and like if you're not like on cam or something, like a lot of times when we record my podcast, I won't have my camera on, I'll just have theirs. So like I can be frantically searching for something and they have no idea. They don't know, I don't know where this is going. Yeah, like it's like the internet is your DM screen. And like no one can see your mistakes ever.
I think too, I prep differently for mine. Mm-hmm. My IRL games and my online games are I just prep differently. Because I find that like I have to bring something different to the table on camera, like behind a mic and a camera, than I do when I'm sitting in a room with a group of people. And so the way I prep is extremely different. Like if I'm playing an online game, rarely are we going to use a real map. I may use reference images, but I find that it's not necessary. It's heavier role play, more storytelling. I guess I don't find that the camera or the mic takes away from that in any way. But if I'm with a group of people IRL, having things tangibly in person helps the experience in a different way. Like I said, putting out candles and lanterns, and I always have ambience music, and like it's just a different experience. So for me, I can't say that I like one or the other better. But in terms of the way I prep, it's just very different.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I again, like I said, I don't. I've only run a couple things recently in real life, but usually I'm using all my digital tool sets because I've gotten so used to them. For me, it's very freeing. I think, like sort of like Sid said, to be able to do it online. I mean, I can prep all the character sheets with all their attacks and all that sort of stuff in Roll20, which I love. it's one click for those. It's doing the math for you. You don't have to remember your bonuses or what to add on the rolls. I mean, everyone loves to actually throw a real set of dice, but as a DM, I mean, before our stream, we were talking about, I have a giant combat coming up where potentially I would have 30 creatures I'd be controlling. That's just unfathomable in real life, where it actually could, it's still not a lot of fun, but you could theoretically do it in an online setting. I'm also totally spoiled because I've got a 3-camera setup, a 3-monitor setup. So I've got like right now, I got Twitch running over here. I got OBS in the center. I've got chat to one side. I basically have this setup like one of those mech robot warrior things where it heads up display in the front and like all my tactical stuff to the left and the right, so that I can do all my clicking and stuff over here. Which, again, Sid, the internet is your DM screen, and it's amazing. I mean, I've got D&D Beyond here. I've got Roll20 there. I've got, my notes in Google Docs and all of my old NPC lists and stuff like that, where I have just a bunch of windows open, and all I got to do is one click. I'm one click away from all my things instead of the dig through a notebook, because if I dig through the notebook once, then nothing's in the same order again.
Right. And I think it comes back to a little bit as well what you were saying before, Torschool, about the culture of the internet these days, and particularly folks perhaps of my generation, we live a lot of our lives online. I feel very comfortable being in an online setting, but also for those of us who maybe aren't so inclined to turn up to like social events with people that you don't know, and like a safety thing, I guess, both in how you feel and, physically being close to people isn't something that, necessarily women would want to go to, like a club where it's just a bunch of guys hanging around. On the internet, that you're in your own room and you're safe and you can play with anyone and you're not really going to get into too much trouble or danger. But also I just feel very comfortable, doing it. And it's definitely a practice thing, right? I remember my first online session, using like Roll20 years and years ago, was very awkward and very not smooth, I suppose, but it definitely does take getting a bit of used to, and multiple monitors are a must. Otherwise it does get a lot trickier. Although I have done it in the past, but wouldn't recommend. Anything else on playing using online stuff versus real life?
I had a question. We did this before, and I made this comment before. I've had people in the past, especially people that I played with in the past, that said, how can you play online? How is it even the same game? Because they equate D&D to poker or something where you have to be able to read the expressions of the players. Right. And I appreciate all of that. And I say that, there is a comfort level to being able to read the physical, I don't know, the excitement or the depression or whatever. But I think that those tells are still there when we're doing it online like this. It's just it takes practice like anything else. You do it a couple times, and I guarantee you that everybody on the screen will say, yeah, it's different, but the same. We just look at things differently. We still can read things differently. Listen, I know when I do stuff to my players as a GM, keeper, DM, I know when they're upset. Yeah. I know when they're not happy with me. They don't have to sit there in the same room and shake their fist or, flip me a bird or, run over and punch me in the face, which almost happened one time. It's the same thing, and the same emotion is able to work. And hearkening back to what Will said before, that's why this is working. People talk about Critical Role. It is the perfect storm. The technology meets the game, meets the talent, meets the performance, meets the passion. Everything hits at the same time. We're all getting used to this different medium. It's conveying. If it wasn't conveying, no one would be watching. The numbers wouldn't be going up. None of us would be here. But you can get what you need from it, just like you can get from what you need from a stage as opposed to a movie. You can cry in a movie or in a stage. Yep. And I'm going to tell you this, with the Critical Role thing, I wanted to do and play D&D and come back to RPGs for one reason and one reason only. I started watching Critical Role. I live and die and cry and weep and sing and laugh and love with those characters. I love those people. I've never met a one of them in real life. They could all be horrible people. I don't think they are, but
save it.
right, the characters that they portray and the things that they do on that stream are a blessing and a joy. And it's not something that you could. I don't have to be in the room with them. Listen, when Laura Bailey, when Vex went down in that subterranean crypt, all of a sudden that necrotic magic just sucked her life out of her. And Liam O'Brien climbs up and he mimics climbing up on the outside and he sees his dead. I haven't cried that much in my life. And I love this game. I love everything about it. It works. It works streaming. It works.
Absolutely. Oh, and like Sid and I dated for 3 months, like just on like Skype calls before we ever like, you know, met in real life. So like you can have like relationships.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, like,
believe it or not, man.
yeah, it's exactly what Greg is saying. Like, I won't be able to put it in quite as beautifully and eloquently as Greg, but like, you know, people, I see that question so often: is how do you play online? How do you GM online? Like, I can never do it. I need this. I need this. I need this. And it's like, well, you say that as like you're watching this game that I'm on, and you're saying that you're crying with us. Like, you know, if you feel that, we feel that too with each other. Like, you know, it's not a different experience, really. If you are able to watch it and you see our faces and you cry along with our characters and you laugh and you sing and jump and do all those things, you're just as involved as we are. You know, we can feel it the same way you do, and we can react the same way that you do. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I find it's interesting too. It's liberated me a lot as a DM playing online. And for all the right reasons, you know. I think sometimes IRL we get really stuck behind a book and a map and a computer screen, you know what I mean? Like, we have to have all the things. We gotta have our things. It's why we have giant kits that we roll around with us with all of our stuff and our miniatures and stuff. And I think if that's the game you want to run, go for it. I've been there. I've done it. I did. But I found that online has liberated me of the need for those things, and it's actually gotten me to the core of really why I think I love tabletop role playing. You know, I started out as an actor and did it stage for many years, and I did film and all kinds of stuff, and in the end I've really come back here because one of the things I love the most is improv and collaborative storytelling. And so for me personally, finding that in tabletop role playing and being able to get rid of the things that take away from those experiences, so actually I find that I'm more connected oftentimes with the people that I'm playing with online than I am with the people I play with IRL.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to Wolf Shadow's question, which was, what was the reason, it's a classic, what was the reason for getting interested in D&D? What made you all roll into playing it? This is, I'm sure, a story that you guys may have told time before.
I know this one for me. I mean, and it's band goes, here comes the age. Dude, the release of 2nd edition. I remember at my comic book store seeing the posters that 2nd edition was exactly, that 2nd edition was coming out, that they were they were bringing them in on the tall ships into Boston so that we could this was after the Tea Party,
off the typewriter.
Absolutely. And I can remember, and I remember seeing. And, it's so funny because these days people are just like, oh, it's terrible. Why would you ever do that? I remember seeing that the monster manual came in this 3-ring binder, and it was like going to be the coolest thing because, you had the 3-ring binder with all the monsters in it, and you could do all the things. And I can remember I was one of those kids. I went every week, even though when I knew it wasn't going to be out until the next month, I still showed up every week. Is it here yet? Do you have do you have any copies? Do you have anything that come in? Do you go,
you got games on your phone?
What'd you get?
What'd you get? D&D in your store?
You got some dice? You got some dice? I mean, it was, I can remember, and that was the thing. I didn't have anyone to play with really at that point. I just wanted to see the monsters. I was all about the monsters. And then I sort of got away from it. I mean, in the meantime, I remember buying Shadowrun just because I thought it was a neat idea, and reading Shadowrun. And I tried to run it once or twice for people, but I really didn't have a gaming group at the time. And then I kind of left it for 20 years. And then absolutely 100%, Most people know I was big in the cosplay community before sort of getting involved heavily in the D&D community. And I can tell you exactly what happened. When they put out the new intro for Critical Role with all of their costumes, it showed up on one of my costume feeds of, hey, you should look at these great costumes they did. And so I watched the thing. I was like, well, that's kind of cool. What is Critical Role? Oh, well, it's these people playing D&D. I was like, what is Twitch? And what is this? And is there a way for me to watch this? And I think they were out on YouTube. So I went and watched it on YouTube. And I can tell you, I was so confused at the very beginning. But I was hooked from the bartender in Craghammer. Matt Mercer's bartender in Craghammer in that first episode. And literally he opened his mouth and I was hooked. And I can remember I didn't even watch like their little intros to know who the characters were. I was just like, oh my God, get to whatever this is. And so I didn't even know who the characters were, who they were trying to play, any of that kind of stuff. But bartender, I should learn their name. I should go back and find their name so I can say that it was this exact character the moment they opened their mouth, and I was hooked to be back into 5e. And then I, out of the blue, I think contacted Will for a player game.
Of all people, yeah.
Well, I can tell you.
I can blame mine on Will too if it means anything. Tom.
Yeah. Well,
Me too.
dude, I mean, I signed up for Twitch to follow Critical Role, and I kept, that was, I mean, when you were like the all-time tweet master, the retweet master of anything D&D. I mean, about 2 years ago, I mean, Encounter Roleplay on Twitter was the gateway drug, man. Oh my God, Will, you're the D&D gate.
Oh, I am the gateway.
You are the gate.
Oh, no!
That's...
Yeah.
What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I started playing. I mean, mine's not really that exciting. I mean, I started playing when I was like 15 or 16, one of those. So, like 2 days ago, basically. I was like a theater kid my whole life. I always did shows, and then I did a couple of commercials, a couple ads, a couple things like that, and I don't know, I've just always been like an actor-y type of person. And so then my best friend Joey was like a huge nerd and still is like my best friend, and was like, yo, you should come, you should come over to Noah's house because his mom is making marshmallow popcorn and we're gonna play 4th edition D&D. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I know that I love marshmallow popcorn, so I'll go.
It's all about the popcorn.
It was so good. But yeah, like then they were just like, let's just play, and it was just like a group of friends, and they told me what it was, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And like, it wasn't a big deal. We just started playing, and then after that, we played it twice a week, every week, until we all graduated. And now here we are.
Mine actually, so yeah, I started out in theater. So when I was in college, going through my theater program, I had become really into Shakespeare. That was kind of acting I did, was classical Shakespeare actor. Long ago when Chelsea was young. And I was really into, as most Shakespeare and classical actors are, stage combat and weaponry and swordplay. And so I started picking that up a lot, and then followed quickly into improv and like clowning and physical comedy. So I got all of this training, and I was like loving it. I was like doing this thing. And it was actually my fight combat teacher who came up to me, and he's like, hey, I can tell you really love like swinging swords IRL. Do you want to come hang out with me and some of my friends and do it with some dice? And I was like, I don't know that I understood that, but I'll be there. All right, does that have to do with fantasy and swords? I'm there. And so, yeah, I showed up. My fight combat teacher, he had a few other people over, and another one of my friends came with me, and we played 3.5. That was where I was introduced, was 3.5. And he is still to this day the best DM I've ever had. It was one of those like things I never deserved that great of a DM out of the gate. I just didn't. And he rocked my world. Some of my favorite D&D games to this day are thanks to him. And so, yeah, it's just kind of it just spiraled from there. Like I left that night and I went home and I ordered as many books as I could find. I ordered a second edition book, and then I went back and forced a bunch of people to play with me just so I could go back and play the games. And then we went forward. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I forced a bunch of people. I didn't know anybody here, so I forced everybody to play 3.5 with me. I taught all of my friends how to play so that I had somebody at my table. And it was actually Rim who was like, you know what? You should stop like searching for people constantly to play at your table, because you know IRL games are always schedule problems. He's like, you should just sign up for this viewer thing that I do over here on Encounter Roleplay. So I had been gaming for like 8 years with tabletop games and D&D before, and I went over to Encounter and was like, what is this magical online realm, and how do I get involved? And then it once again it spiraled downwards, and here I am. So
there you go. Greg, was it before the pawn shop, or was it just afterwards that really piqued your interest?
It was during. It was while I was that I realized that to continue this addiction that is D&D, I would have to live my life in the pawn shop, right?
I must return.
Magical place with polyhedrons and other things. But as what it was for me, Critical Role got me hooked into all this. Actually, it was tabletop, watching Will Wheaton play with a bunch of different people, and I started playing board games with my kids when they got old enough to play. And then I remembered my love for D&D and started reading the books. And then they're like, hey, there's if you like tabletop, you're going to like Critical Role. And it was like episode 11 or something, and I started watching. Loved it. And then I remember that sequence of events where it was like, oh, you like Critical Role, you'll like Encounter Roleplay. And I watched it, and I did. And I liked it a lot. And I started following. And there was a question that said, hey, would you like to try out for one of our games? And I thought, yeah, I would, but I'm old. And I tried, and Will said, I don't care that you're old. Let's have some fun. And so I played a D&D game. Right? I played a D&D. It all came back to the porn shop. I played a D&D game with Will, and I had so much fun. And let's play this, let's play that, let's play D&D, let's play Cthulhu. And I have just been running with that ball that Will tossed to me however many months ago. And it was an absolute game changer for my life, because my friends have asked me, and they said, well, we used to play D&D 1,000 years ago, but you haven't played in a long time. Where are you coming up with these stories when you run your own games? And I said, dude, I never stopped playing. I had these stories in my head, all of our characters doing these things over and over again. And it's the bane of anybody that dreams and is creative and is stuck in something they just goddamn don't like doing.
Yep. Preach.
Daydreams become the cave writings on the wall of your head. They're there. And you just keep them, and you keep building on them, and remember these stories and the fun that you had. And this British bastard over here was like, hey man, get some of these drawings out into the sunlight. Yeah. And change my life completely.
Yeah, I would agree. Oh, I was in a tough spot. Like when the first time I gamed with him, I was in this weird place. I had been an actor for so long, and I was just really drained by the entire theater process. And I just wasn't being fulfilled anymore, and I couldn't figure out why that was. And so it wasn't really until I found a really great online community where I was building stories again, and I was getting my ideas, like Gret said. I was making and creating. I stopped writing for years, and now that I do D&D, I just I am always full of ideas. If you guys can see the sticky notes on the opposite side of the screen, I am more creatively charged now than I have ever been in my entire artistic career, and it inspires me to do so much more. And so I have an ERP definitely to thank for that and bringing me into this community, along with starting the podcast. So it's just one of those things. It's just so intoxicating to be involved in, and it gets you just charged. For me, it's just a creative battery.
For sure it is. It's I think especially the Twitch stuff is like a live performance. There's such energy you get from performing in front of people and getting a good reaction, of course. But presumably if you do terrible shows, it's probably not so much fun, but when you do a great show and that feeling afterwards, there's nothing quite like it. Not only just playing D&D, but getting to share it with a lot of people as well. Let's see. Kenjia asked, a game moment that you're gonna remember forever. Maybe from the season, maybe just ever.
Squall killing Tasker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good one.
Baller move.
So I am actually going to go back to, because it sort of goes into the how you got involved. I had played one game with Will, and then we had started a new season. He invited me to come be, for a season of Samurai Sigil, and I had been writing. I had taken almost 20 years off of creative writing, and when I finally got back into it, when I first got back into D&D, and I ended up writing a backstory that literally turned into my entire campaign setting, because that's what I do. And it was because just creative writing came out like a flood. So, I mean, this, like Chelsea was saying, this giant charge of creative energy, so many ideas, stuff that had been pent up for like literally 20 years. And I really wanted to try to DM, but wasn't quite sure about, I'd only seen Critical Role. I had played at that point mostly in real life, and just wasn't quite sure about the whole video piece of getting emotion and whether you could have those deep emotional moments on video. And turned out we had a couple players missing, and Will was like, hey, do you want to just do a backstory thing with your character? And Will and I had this 2-hour one-on-one session, which, I mean, I was crying by the end. I think Will was crying by the end. Was one of my greatest just moments of, as a person, suddenly being, after 20 years of kind of a drought, being reconnected into the emotions of my stories. I'm an engineer. I really hadn't felt like that. And since it was the first one, and it was me and Will, and just Will had a whole nother something planned, but we had this one little thing. And again, all the way back to the very beginning of the session, of just play off of what happened. I asked this vampire, what did she remember? Or tell me about the sea, I think is what we said, is that she said she was from the sea, and the music was hitting just right, and the story was hitting right, and that's what it became about, was this lost paladin who had suddenly was serving two gods and found the answer to how you can serve both life and death by falling in love with a vampire. And it was crazy. I mean, how Will and I were in that at the moment. So yeah,
definitely.
That's definitely.
I felt like it's interesting because that was a pretty dark game. We do some pretty dark stuff with the Turncloak stuff as well. But I found like the moments that are like real magic are like the little bits of light in all of the darkness, and those little bits that you're just like, that is. Magic has been captured in this moment, and it's because it's improv, you can never recapture it again, and there's something quite special about that. I think just having a moment and you're like, that was fucking awesome right then, and we're never going to be able to do that quite the same again. And we shouldn't try. We should just let it be what that moment was, And
I had a theater.
That's the difference between D&D and like Hollywood.
Yeah, I had a theater teacher tell me one time that making like live performance is like snow. You go out, you make a snow angel in it, and then it snows again at night, and you come back and you can make a snow angel, but it will never be the same snow angel, right? Everyone's unique and beautiful and fucking awesome.
Rock and roll. Any moments that you guys will never forget? We had Sergeant Tasker.
Oh, right. I don't know. I have to be real. Finding out that Mutt was part of like that whole process of Rufus like figuring out something's not right. I'll never forget that. It's been I would say it's actually the first, not just because I had to argue with everybody and they still never believed me, but but because I think at least as both the mindset of a demon player, you want your players to pick up on story, and you want them to pick up on the small hints and clues. And then as a player, when you start to do that, you start to build your own theories and like all of this kind of stuff. And then to really dive into something, that whole minor thing was really something that was unique that I had never had before in another game that I liked.
Nice. So let's move on to Obo Crazy's question. If anything in Mutt's Tavern automatically fixes itself, what is the one thing you'd put in this tavern to be safe forever? Well, the one thing that doesn't fix itself in Mutt's Tavern is Mutt's heart, as we found out.
Broke his little heart.
Dark.
One thing, I guess maybe that your characters would put in there. I'd put
That
like
was the
shit in there.
sinister DM laugh of all time. His heart.
I would put
Ooh.
Mutt in there. I'd just let Mutt just be Mutt, you know? I have no idea what he is. I have
Let's
no
not
idea.
clutter his space.
Oh yeah, no,
Mutt has
I have no doubt
Like,
whatsoever
leave him
that
alone and just back away slowly.
yeah,
Um,
I have no doubt whatsoever that Mutt has just sort of grown from he was the bartender to suddenly being, you know, like I want to go I want Mutt to become like actual like canon D&D like in the Sword Coast campaign guide of what the hell is up with Mutt and his bar.
you look down any Stark alleyway, and at the end is Mutt.
Selling drugs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told Will this, man. Remember the old Volos guides that actually had the
Yep.
pipe ratings and everything? I want him to review Mutts. I want Volos to go to Mutts and review everything and
Oh,
give
yeah.
the pipes, give the.
That's
That would
funny.
be so dope.
That'd be brilliant. Oh, what would my character bring to Mutt? Well, it never really came out, but it was part of what made Rufus Rufus, is that like his birth killed his mother due to his size. So, you know, if Rufus had it his way, it would be taking, you know, his mother back to probably heal her and bring her back to life, like if it actually could do that organically. Because he lived his whole life in the shadow of being a beast because he killed her, his existence did.
Nepatak could go in there. She's
Yep. A fixer.
they had a cute friendship.
Yeah, no, that is the idea of Mutt running around and breaking all the tables and them just sort of rebuilding themselves as he's chasing Nepatak around. I mean, this literally is, I wouldn't think of it other than just to be the dagger piece of the, you know, what can I say that's going to sound really good for Miguel? His wings. He would put his wings there.
That's a probably really good one, actually, back
Yeah.
for him.
I would put, or Farron, I guess, would put the necklace that Zephyr gave her at the end, the essence, the last wish. I put that in there. I put it in a lockbox in Nothagen forever.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one, because I mean, like, you already have unlimited money in Mutt's Tavern because he just has like hordes and hordes of gold and treasures, so there's nothing else that you could need for that. So yeah, the wish makes a lot of sense. Just coming here from Light Fingery and chat us, or he said, discovered his channel quite by accident only a couple of months ago. I loved AD&D first edition for years, but it's your performances, enthusiasm, and your openness to viewers that has given me an appreciation of D&D 5e. So I'd like to say thank you. I'm sure we'd like to say thank you right back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Friend, we appreciate that. Let's see. I think we got through that first batch of
Yeah, we
questions
did.
there.
Hot dog.
Yeah. So let's see. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to file them. We'll get around to the second round of the fingers on buzzers. It's a quick fire round
Yeah.
of questions. You can add us in chat. You can just put question in front of your question so we know it's a question. If we missed any, do let us know. But I think we got through almost all of them there. I think Executive Arts were open for an interview on your YouTube channel. Sure, I mean, you can hit us up on Twitter. It's usually the best place to find us as well. Yes, but question in front. There you go. Go ahead, Oscar.
I'm just, I was trying to think. So as far as, I'm going to go with Will. I actually have a question for Will. You know, as you DM, gosh, I don't even know what you're up to now. I know you're up to 12 shows a week.
I only DM 3 or 4 a week.
Okay. But even so, DMing that many, because I personally am thinking about adding in a couple more shows. So for my multi-show DMers, how do you keep your shows? How do you give equal time to your multiple shows and keep them unique and separate from each other?
I'll let you know when I figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just you have super distinct, different shows. Like I used to DM a lot more than I do at the moment, and I DM a lot less, and I find it easier to do like a couple and keep them distinct and give them more time. So I play like a D&D one, a Call of Cthulhu one that I'll DM, and they're like super distinct in where like my mind is at for both of them. But it does get difficult if you're running like 2 D&D campaigns concurrently, or even in the same worlds, or the same like setting. Like both games are in the realms. Like that gets super confusing super quick. So yeah, genre differences definitely help me. Excuse me. I don't know about you, Greg and Chelsea. I know you guys both do multiple shows on your Twitch channels.
That's it. I do a Conan, Firefly, 2 Call of Pulp Cthulhu's, and a D&D, and Atomic Cthulhu on Mondays for Will. If I did anything that was too similar, I'd pop, because it has to be, 1950s for this one, fantasy for this one, Hyborian Age for this one. Anything too similar, I don't think there's any way to do it. Not without there being a bleed. There'd be a bleed.
I think it's it's more interesting for audiences as well, right? Like if you're as a DM feeling like you're doing the same thing, then I think that's interesting for people to watch either. So that's something I'd say.
Yeah, I think people are just as interested in process as they are the product, right? Like I think a lot of people find a lot of interest in how DMs plan. Tall has a planning show, and everybody does it a little differently. There is not a single one of all the mini games that I plan for and or play in that I plan the same way each time. There are just different things that inspire me. If you're playing multiple settings or game systems, it's a lot easier to differentiate. I play a lot of 5th edition and a lot of different places, and so like going into certain things, I set ground rules or find ways of putting up the barriers that help keep things separated. So like my Sunday Fun Day stream that I do is ridiculous high fantasy. Just about anything goes, as long as but it's all based around this one pub, right? It's a way for me to keep things kind of contained. When I'm over on ERP and I'm building a campaign for the viewer game, the viewer game is very, very special kind of game, and I need a very specific setting for it that has a lot of barriers and boundaries and ways to control. And then, if you're doing a long-term campaign or you're building something out of a module, it's very different. So I guess for me, my inspiration just comes from different places. So it's hard for me sometimes to see that there's this like overlap that begins to happen. But I also keep a running list of, this is a Chelsea secret. I've never shared this before. I keep a running list of monsters that I use every 2 weeks, and I clear it. Or encounters. And it just, like, I make a list of them, like, at the end of every game, I'm like, okay, this one came up. I can't use those again for the 2 weeks, like, repeat, especially when you're doing a lot of one-offs. Your content begins to just cross. You start using the same kind of puzzles and the same kind of builds and the same kind of encounters. And so I guess what I'm saying is set boundaries for yourself, like allowing yourself to build within boundaries can also be more creatively liberating than simply saying, well, everything's fair game.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, like I said, I was thinking about adding more, and I was thinking about adding more in my same campaign setting, but was worried about crossover. So I'm now wondering if it isn't better, like you all are doing it, make it two very distinct things that you wouldn't, you don't get the bleed, or wish you'd used one idea here instead of over there or whatever. Cool.
Yeah, definitely helps. And like that, like DM fatigue burn, which is just like a constant, like for me, a constant sort of like well that you have to keep refilling up with more imagination, I guess, which is like, it sounds like it's like you can't, how do you fill a well of imagination? Well, it sounds like terrible advice. But by just doing different things, right? And I used to be like, I would just play D&D every day, and as much as I love Dungeons and Dragons, like the time I spend on just playing D&D and the time I spend playing different systems makes me appreciate D&D more when I play it. The more I just play 5th edition, the more I feel like I'm burning out on playing it, and I want to do other things. Yeah, freeing my reins and letting me do other things is definitely helps me from feeling that sort of fatigue of like, oh, okay, we're gonna go and do an encounter, and yeah, there's probably a trap and a puzzle, and yeah, there's probably the end of the world. I
also think too, you can draw inspiration from lots of places. Like, don't discredit where inspiration can come from. Sometimes we're like, oh, it's got to be like, I need to be pulling from these and these books. And it's like, well, you know, the current Trials of Baal came from the fact that I started to reread Dante's Inferno.
There you go.
Right, like that's, and it had absolutely nothing. That was not my plan going into rereading it. It was just something I picked up and started reading. And I was like, this, right? And then it just exploded from there. So I think too, if you're hitting that fatigue, sometimes you need a break, as Will was saying. And like, if you're gonna take in content, take in something not fantasy, not D&D related, and see what comes of that.
Sorry, Toll School, I did the thing.
You did the thing.
A thing.
You did the thing.
It's all right. I am someone else probably at the moment. Flashbangs had asked, do you prefer published or homebrew campaigns? Oh, and someone had asked in chat previously, do we prefer Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds? Fantasy Grounds is my virtual tabletop of choice. Published campaigns, as I was mentioning earlier, are like super fun for imagination. But I think I use maybe like 20% of the actual campaign material when I end up running it. Because I don't like reading. I prefer writing, right? Like writing homebrew campaigns is more exciting, more interesting. And like, I feel like the ideas that are written down are like a really good basis. But also when you're playing with a group and you know exactly who you're playing for, or who you're DMing for, a lot of published material is, I don't want to say vanilla, but I want to say like pretty standard. Like it's most people will enjoy it. They're hitting more than 50% of people are going to enjoy this style of play because we've got the 3 pillars. You know, we've got a bit of combat here, but a bit of this over here. But for a group that I might run for, it might really enjoy like the social aspect and less enjoy the combat stuff. So then end up twisting and changing it. And as I was saying before, I find that a little bit more difficult to take something and change it around than just to make up my own thing. So I do prefer running homebrew campaigns, as long as I have like the time to like invest time in them, right? And that's a personal thing.
Yeah, no, I run, you know, my world is my homebrew world. I actually haven't other than just some of the few little one-shot things that are out there. I've run a couple of the prepared ones. I've always run homebrew, and for the most part, since I play a lot with Will, I've mainly, I mean, other than actually, I think Tomb of Annihilation, everything I've done with Will has been homebrew, even the little one-shots.
Yeah,
So I actually don't have enough experience. Will say the one thing that I have been saving for the right DM and the right group is Curse of Strahd. I have not read it. I've not looked at it. I've always like flip the page, turn away, change the channel whenever anything about Curse of Strahd comes up, because I want to experience. Everyone talks about what an amazing campaign it is, and so I'm waiting for the right thing to come along to go, because I so you know me, dude. I want to take a paladin into Curse of Strahd. It's like
take a paladin of Barovia. No,
oh, you know me, dude. I'm gonna paladin the heck out of that Barovia.
I'm gonna run the game where you take a paladin into Barovia.
Oh,
dude.
I'm all about Pally and in Barovia, man. I'm there. So I'm waiting for that's my waiting for it to come along to finally do Curse of Strahd, so I can do my Tall Squall plays a paladin. I know, shocker, but if anyone hasn't watched Voltron yet, go watch Voltron, because yes, I am Shiro and I play paladins. I am Space Dad and I always play a paladin.
The fun story, the paladin in our Curse of Strahd game that we did a while back died in episode 2, so there's that.
Well
then. Yeah, I would say, I think most of us are probably going to say homebrew is kind of our go-to. There's something a little bit easier in it, but I'll say if I go to a module, it's because there's something about that module that really speaks to me. Like really, really speaks to me, because I think somebody mentioned in the chat, but I too have a problem keeping other people's ideas in my head. I can read through an entire module and I come out the other side, I'm like, okay, what do I remember of that? And
right.
Usually it's just those pieces that I picked up and remember that end up building the story like Will was talking about. But occasionally, if I find a module where I read through it and I'm like, I loved that, then those are the modules that I'll run. And then usually as a DM too, I think it's a learning thing to go back and say, okay, what about those did I really like? Did I like the way it was a puzzle here? Did I like this about it? What was it that made it so, spoke to me so personally in terms of trying to find something? That way, if I need to go find modules again, I know what kind of modules I want to look for, because there's so many out there with people writing so much content now. So you also need to know what you want to be looking for and what you're bringing to your table.
You know what? I have
savage. Are we allowed to just be savage here?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean,
I homebrew.
Depends what kind of savagery.
I homebrew literally everything because I don't want to read you a book. I want to tell you a story, and I'm not going to read you something that's pre-written because I think it's boring. I want to tell you what I want to tell you.
Hey, your fun is not wrong.
I'm never wrong.
Yeah. I will say, I was saying that I really haven't played anything. It's not a pre-written campaign. I will say I'm enjoying the heck out of Midgard, which we are playing. So there is that. So I have actually played something other than Tomb of Annihilation, but just getting started into it. So
yeah, and I don't think we're not playing through a like a campaign module.
No, it's
so it's a homebrewed story, I guess, in the semi-official, well, not actually official, but unofficial Cobalt Press's official Midgard world, which has been fleshed out for like 20 years or something. So, that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I also for me, I don't think I take in a lot of stuff when I read it. Similarly to you, Chelsea, when I read something, same thing as what did I read? What do I remember from having read this? So I definitely don't think I'm one of those. I don't know, what do they call them? Like visual learners or something like that. Is that the term? I don't know. I'm another kind of learner. I don't know what kind of learner I am, but reading the book often doesn't get it into my head. And also, there's totally a thing that Sid said. It's narcissistically, I think my ideas are better, right? So it's half the time, it's good to get an idea from someone else's idea, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, they had that cool frog creature, I think, in the first season of Learn by Playing. It's a cool frogomorph there. It's what if that was 10 times bigger and 10 times worse? Puzzle attached to it. That would be even better, right?
Yep.
So and you actually had to leapfrog?
Yeah, well, exactly. That was the one true answer, was to leapfrog through everything, as I think we surmised pretty quickly. So yeah. But I think the campaigns that D&D are coming out of are especially good for new players or new D&D groups getting together, because it is that sort of common ground. So it's oh yeah, have you heard of Tomb of Annihilation? Yeah, I have. That sounds really interesting. That also sounds like something that I would be interested in. Whereas hey, do you want to play in my homebrew world or my homebrew campaign? is like super broad. And you know, what does that mean? And you know, do I want to play in your homebrew campaign? I don't know. Like that could be anything. You know, so.
But
definitely
that could be anything.
That's it. So yeah, there's no true answers, I guess. Of a lot of the answers that we'll give are like, well, if you like this and this, or well, if you think this and that. So
the world's not white and black, people. There's gray.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to give and take. There's a little bit of everything.
The homebrewing is definitely like all gray, right? Let's just
Yeah.
50 Shades of it.
I actually have one. I just wanted to comment on this. T-Roll Play, said that Deborah Ann Wool, as a DM on Stream of Many Eyes, with her story, 9.5 out of 10 stars. I agree. And one of the things that really I enjoyed about watching that as a viewer and even as a DM, was the validity, and I call it, of casual DMing. I really loved that she didn't have a screen in front of her. I love that she basically just had a notebook. She had a few little post-it notes for some flip-to pages, and it was very much the feel of friends, throw a couple glasses of wine or beer on the table, sitting around at a cocktail party and doing something to pass the time while having conversation and enjoy with each other. I mean, it reminded me much more of a Pictionary party that we used to have in the 80s than necessarily a D&D, and you're gonna have a map and a grid and the minis and the this that really bring out a couple dice in that. And I just kind of wanted to bring up certainly what we do here in all of our different formats, all the way from homebrew campaigns to, I mean, people kind of know, if you've ever watched me on my DM's desk, really deep lore, really deep prep, lots of interwoven narratives in a giant world machine that cranks away, to I'm going to bring my little notebook that has a couple monsters in it, and I want to hit on these 3 things. There's some witches. You're going to go to the town. We might have a little bit of combat, but it's probably going to be more socially solved type idea of that. Just like Sid was saying, she was there to tell a story and throw a couple dice to figure out some outcomes. And that is such a great, lovely, valid way to play. I mean, to me, it is the I think you're going to see the game headed that way. I think you've got a lot of us emulating that Critical Role,
right.
Matt Mercer, huge world concepts and story and depth, which is great. And I love seeing that. I think you're going to see a lot of people who are doing just some casual, round the coffee table with a couple beers and a glass of wine. And I love it. I love that. I think that was received so well on such a huge public forum.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up towards the end of our allotted time tonight. So I did promise that we'd talk a little bit about what we'd be doing next. So we won't be back next week because we have, of course, finished our season, and there will be some turnaround. We are planning on going back for a 3rd season, and that is slated for sometime late July. So there will probably be about a month or so before we'll be back here. As to what we'll be doing next season, I can't say, but it will be exciting, and it will be cool, and it will be fun, and it will involve Dungeons and Dragons, and learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons whilst playing Dungeons and Dragons as a basic concept. So we will be back late July at earliest for our next season. So that's when you'll be seeing us next. And if you guys have any questions in the meantime, of course, you can come and find us on our various social medias or Twitch channels and find us there. So that is the news for you guys. But let's go around the cast and crew as we sign off for our season here, 2nd season of Learn by Play. Did we enjoy ourselves tonight and, of course, over the whole season? And where can we find you guys online? As for you guys there in the chat, if you want to catch myself and all of these guys who play games together over on Encounter Roleplay, you can follow us over here on twitch.tv/Encounter Roleplay for daily D&Ds and Cthulhu's and RPGs and chat shows and the like. So, yeah, that's where you will find us over there. But, Tool School, the usual questions, my friend.
I had a blast, as always. It's been a blast this whole season. I just feel honored and humbled at the same time to be able to play with this amazing cast that do such amazing RP and just make me smile every time we get together and play. If you guys want to find me elsewhere on other things that I'm doing, best thing to do is to go to my Twitter, which is linked in chat, where you can find the pinned post has all the things that I'm currently in, and would love to see you out and around there on some of the other things that I do, including Turncloaks, my campaign that I run for charity, and I've got a couple one-shots coming up on other different channels that I'm doing. If you find me there, be sure to say you found me through Learn by Play here on the D&D channel, and I will leave you with the sign-off I usually do over on my channel. Until next time, gather your friends together, y'all, and tell a story, because that's what it's all about. Have a great one, everyone. Cool. Thanks for turning in this season.
And Sid.
Hello. Sorry, I forgot that my mouse isn't plugged in to this laptop, so I was trying to move it to the unmute button, and it wasn't moving. Hello. I'm Sydney, and you can find me on Twitter at Sydneyak. I'll link it. Oh, Lauren already linked it. Okay, Lauren linked it in the chat, and so did I. So double get go follow us twice. And I also stream now. I did my first stream yesterday, so also follow me on Twitch here, where you are right now. Go follow, because I'm doing fun things over there. And you can find pretty much everything else I do on my Twitter. I am the Dungeon Master for WonderQuest Podcast. You can follow that at WonderQuest Pod. It's linked in my bio. I also play Ari on Turncloaks Podcast, which is the one with Will DMing, Tall Squall on there. We cry all the time. It's great fun. You can follow that at Turncloaks Pod. And I make YouTube videos, and you can find me there at Sid Shields. It's also linked in my bio on Twitter. So just go. So many things you're obligated to do now.
Yep, that is a legally binding contract. Mm-hmm. Greg.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Playing on the D&D channel with this group is a dream come true, but the story that's told is told for a reason, and chat has been absolutely amazing. Ken, the comment came through there that you feel like you are a member of the Wild Cards. My friend, that's because you are. You are a member of the Wild Cards. You have been here. You are walking and stomping the reinvented realms in boots beside ours. And that leads me to say the following, because this week has been irritating for me, someone that grew up grabbing dice out of a porn shop bin, where people are being told now they can't play this game because they haven't played it back when we were grabbing dice out of a porn shop bin. So I'm here to tell you, and this is an old RPGer's pledge, if you have a story in your heart, sit beside me. If you have a character you love, sit beside me. If you have passion, sit beside me. If you want for fun and companionship, sit beside me. And if you simply want to play, please let me sit by you. Until next time, D&D, the kid that grabbed the dice out of the porn shop is out.
And Chelsea.
Now, how am I supposed to follow that?
Right? Yeah, sorry.
Great. Always like Greg goes
Thanks,
last.
Greg.
No, I'm kidding. It has been a completely humbling experience to play with this cast of people, to go through this story, even though it's just a snippet of time, still an important one that needed to be told. And I'm glad I got to tell it with you guys and all of you out in chat that have shown up and been there and been part of that crew. You can find me playing a lot of tabletop RPG on a regular basis. I play for a lot of different channels, and I have recently started launching stuff on mine, so you can go check out my Twitch channel at Little Red Dot. there are lots of other places you can find me, including the North by Northwest podcast. And during the month of July, I'm trying something new. I'm going to be beta testing a new Fate system and game over on my channel. Actually, Greg is joining me for that. And it is actually a Cthulhu, 2 Cthulhu games. So I'm going to be doing 2 mini campaigns. You can come in and check that out. And I'm sure we'd love it. And we'd love the feedback as well from the audience. So check us out. You can find all my stuff on my Twitter. My schedule goes out on a weekly basis because I play so much. And yeah, you can hit me up on Twitch when I'm there. Thank you guys just ever so much for letting me be involved in telling stories with you. It is one of those irreplaceable things.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you guys late July next time, but you can catch us over on Canon Roleplay on our own various streams and Twitter places, etc., so you can follow us there. But until next time, and for the last time this season, my friends, try not to roll too many nat ones, because we want to be here laughing when you do. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.